welcome to the BoshNRoll channel. If you want to support my daily Eternal Magic offerings while getting amazing perks like the BoshNRoll Discord community, have me play your deck on the channel, or listen sideboard guides before tournaments, check out the Patreon or YouTube membership program. This channel is possible because of these amazing sponsors. Check them out, all their links are in the video description. As always, thanks for being here. Let's go play some Magic.
Welcome back to the BoshNRoll channel. Today I'm playing Legacy at the request of Patreon subscriber Jam1 Garner. This is Esper Frog. I believe this deck was inspired by a Pokemoki brew during the Grief years. This is my first Legacy deck without Grief in the format, which means we don't need to main deck these Nile Spellbombs. And we get to focus on kind of normal things like disrupting the opponent with Thoughtseize, killing stuff, mostly frogs probably, with Swords to Plowshares and Prismatic Ending. And then Stifle, Force of Will, Daze, Wasteland our way into massive card advantage. Just like Garfield intended. Key aspects of this deck, a big boat of Stifles. Stifle is a legacy card that has basically always existed as long as the format has, and goes through different phases of how good it actually is in the format, and decks go through different levels of, do they play 1 just as a tool in certain spots? Do they play 4 as an active mana denial strategy? If they are playing 4, what cards in their own deck benefit from getting stifled? Things like Uro or Phyrexian Dreadnought, that kind of thing. And this deck has 3 stifles, not quite 4. It has 0 of its own things that it would actually want to stifle. So this is just a opponent's got to give you something to hit with this stifle build. Though we do also have 4 Wastelands and 3 Dazes to try to keep the game small, and Stifle helps do that. If both players only have 1 or 2 mana, things like Tamiyo and Psychic Frog are much better than when your opponent has 4 or 5 mana. Tamiyo is a card that is going up in stock in Legacy. People are starting to figure out this card's really good. With Grief out of the format, we might see more fair white Caracas decks show back up, and those make Tamiyo pretty bad. But for now, a 1-drop that flies and accrues resources is pretty nice. 1 Brainstorm flips Tamiyo automatically, though you can just always threaten a Planeswalker if you have Brainstorm in your deck, which you should if you have the blue mana to cast Tamiyo. I really like Tamiyo in decks where your opponent is worried about removing her on turn 1. Like if I play Tamiyo, you Swords to Plowshares immediately, then I play Psychic Frog, that's bad for you. But if you hold that Swords to Plowshares for 2 or 3 turns, holding out for Psychic Frog, and Tamiyo draws me 3 cards that becomes a Planeswalker, that's also bad for you. I don't like Tamiyo in decks without other creatures. I don't really like her in a Jeskai Control Shell that has like Narset, Teferi, Jace, One Ring, whatever the win cons actually are that aren't creatures. I like her as a Lightning Rod that also is just really good if they don't kill it. Those are my thoughts about this deck. Oh, I have one more big thought. Wrath of the Skies of the sideboard. This is a card I'm very excited about in the post-Grief world. If white mid-range or white control decks are back, Wrath of the Skies is the best sweeper we've had printed in a very long time. I'm a little mid on it in exactly this deck. I think it's going to be good. I'm glad we have access to it in the sideboard. But 4 white sources and no way to ramp energy means this is going to be very fair. And like I'm going to have to go X equals 2 to kill 2 drops and spend 4 mana to do that. Compared to some of the Jeskai builds I've seen going around with Galvanic Discharge and Tune the Narrative, and you can Wrath of the Skies for 2 on turn 2. And you just have more white mana to get under you in the first place. This is honestly a Dimir deck splashing a white sweeper in the sideboard, and I hope that doesn't punish too hard, but I am glad we get to play with Wrath of the Skies. Now I'm done talking about this deck, let's go play it. This is Esper Frog. I'm on the play in round number 1. I think my hand is kind of bad. I'm gonna mulligan this. It just doesn't really do anything and doesn't select for anything. And if one of these cards was a cantrip, I'm in. If one of these cards is a threat, I'm in. It's none of the above. Also, Swords to Plowshares tends to be good in the matchups where Force of Will is not, which means that just half of my hand is bad, one way or the other here. So we're kind of on a pseudo 5, and it's also not good. There's a lot of problems with this mulligan. Okay, I want another land, but I am happier with this hand. Let's see. The land count is 21 here. We've got the normal 8 cantrips. There is one Surveil land. I will keep this. And bottom, Murktide Regent. It's just the one that's the farthest away from useful. Opponent said, happy post-grief. It is, in fact, my first match playing without grief as a potential possibility. If my opponent shoves a fetch land here, I have to decide if I'm gonna stifle it. I would rather select my draw. Undercity Sewers, let's go. Prismatic Ending into the graveyard. And we got to the untap. Which means I just got everything I wanted out of that fetch land. The Surveil didn't find the other land, which obviously sucks, but I did get to Surveil and Stifle, where my concern keeping this hand was I'm going to have to choose whether to Surveil or Stifle. And because of that timing, we got to do both. Now if I can unlock the second meta, we're in good shape. I'll take a 1-drop that draws cards, though. Tune the narrative. Okay, opponent's on the Jeskai control deck that I mentioned thinking was really cool, and I want to try it. Hopefully we'll see that soon on the channel. However, as I've pointed out many times in videos on this channel, decks that are meant to have strong mana, if their mana gets punched a little bit, they sometimes really fail to function. And if this is a basic heavy deck, might even play Harbinger or Back to Basics, and we've already knocked one land out, and now they've fetched a non-basic, or they came up with a non-basic, so then the Wasteland could punish this. I have to make this a non-game, though. I've seen 1, 2, 3 cards now without coming up with a land. Or I've had 3 draw steps and the Surveil, so I've seen 4 cards without coming up with a land. This is getting bad. Okay, I mean, that is an interesting object because it gives me a Planeswalker if it resolves, and it can help me find the land. I don't get to be cagey about Tamiyo here. Okay, so Tamiyo won't flip, but the Brainstorm's the important part. I found land number 2. Sweet relief. I'm going to put these Swords to Plowshares back and cast this Ponder right away. I don't think I'm going to need 3 plows in my hand versus this deck. I don't want Force of Will either. I'm going to shuffle this, especially since keeping that Force of Will means I have to redraw the 2 plows that I just wanted to get rid of. Okay, we're suddenly back. They have 7 cards in their hand and more mana than me. But I have 6 cards in my hand, and screw beats Flood in Magic. Okay, there's a plow, and there's a fresh Tamiyo. Sick. All right. Legendary creatures, redundant legendary creatures are good against removal spells. And I'm not going to play a frog because I expect this deck to have Wrath of the Skies. I'm going to see if I can just value with this Tamiyo for a minute or get a big Bowmaster hit. Oh, baby. Well, that resolves. If they can back this up with anything, it's going to kill me. But if they just Brainstorm here and don't have a Force of Will, I'm in business. Okay, there's the Brainstorm. Here's the Bowmaster. They have 5 cards in hand. I have to imagine the blue-white control deck can do something about this. Yep, sad. When I put away the Force of Will on the Ponder last turn, I knew that was a possibility, where fighting through the Bowmaster might be a big part of the game, but also, like, I didn't want to redraw those 2 plows. Okay, I'm going to attack with Tamiyo. I'm going to attack Jace. Get him. Flash and Dora in the Siege Tower. Ponder. I'd love to find Thoughtseize. No chance of that. I'm going to take the Scrub land, and I'm going to crack a Clue and see if they want to fight over Tamiyo here. They do not. Plus Tamiyo. Now I have something going on, but I believe we are so far behind at this point, and there's no good answer to Jace in my main deck. I don't play a Sheoldred's Edict. The Force is already too late. I can't get 4 colors for Prismatic Ending. People act like they forgot about Jace, but once he's in play, we remember and we respect what he's about. A 3rd color revealed. Fetching mana number 6. That's scary. And they might just be shuffling the Jace Brainstorm and not actually spending 6 mana. But if they Lingus me here, I'm so dead. So they have 6 lands to my 4. I have 6 cards in hand to their 5. They have a Planeswalker that draws cards every turn to my Planeswalker that draws cards every 3rd turn. I think I'm just going to start by casting Brainstorm. Found a fetch land, found a force. I don't need 2 Murktides here. I don't think I need this plow at all. I'm off it. Is there anything in my graveyard I want with Tamiyo? I'm going to fetch first. I could just do that. That's allowed. And my plan is to shove 2 Psychic Frogs here, which means I'll be tapped out anyway, so I'm going to plus Tamiyo. Psychic Frog. Spell Snare, you nasty. Okay. Psychic Frog. Counterspell. All right. Opponent is gaming. I'm going to force this, which is unfortunate because Jace could just bounce Frog. But if they are using resources on Frog, Tamiyo is close to drawing my deck. But they just tune the narrative again in the end step, which means Wrath of the Skies is just a 2-mana answer to both Clues and Frog. And they're brainstorming with Jace. They have Frog covered. You hate to see it. But this is exactly the play pattern of this matchup, like tempo versus control. If control is still stable going into turn 3, turn 4, yeah, forget it. I'm not playing this game anymore. Yeah, you just don't have a chance if they get over the hump. I do like that this deck converts kind of up into a mid-range zone. That's a fun transformation to me. These Swords to Plowshares can probably all go. I love Thoughtseize. I love Planeswalkers against decks like this. Daze is probably mid. Maybe I'll leave in 1 Plow just in case they have Tamiyos of their own or some shit like that. I could add Force of Negation, because now I'm into sort of this tap out, sticky permanent kind of thing. Prismatic Ending can remove stuff like Counterbalance if they're on that. We haven't had to talk about Prismatic Ending in a while because Grief just made it irrelevant, but if you're going to build with Prismatic Ending, you have to be able to get to 3, and 4 is really, really, really nice on the colors that your deck is actually able to make. All right, I'm going to go 0 Plows, up Force of Negation, and try to keep their spells from resolving. Another 1-lander, but this one has higher aspirations than the last one. I did fetch a lot, actually exclusively non-basics last game, which means they might try to back to basics or Blood Moon me this game. I imagine their deck has that option, whether they reach for it here or not. I don't know yet, but I am also a Harbinger of the Seas deck, and I do have basics. I just chose not to fetch for any of them last game. And before anyone asks in the comments, the basics are snow because that's the list I was sent and it doesn't matter. No, you're not missing anything. Attack with Tamiyo, get the clue. I could ponder here, but I just have a perfectly good clue I could crack. And my only white cards in the deck at this point are Teferi and 2 Prismatic Endings. There is a basic Swamp, but Flooded Strand can't fetch it. I am just going to get Basic Island and eat my clue right now. Fresh Tamiyo, that's an easy pitch to Force of Will. They have white mana. They'll probably fetch now because they've seen Stifle in my deck. Brainstorm, go for it. I'm looking for a spot where I can resolve and protect this Narset, though finding lane number 3 here would be super sick. Basic Plains, Prismatic Ending, see you later Tamiyo. I got more where that came from. Redundant Legendaries. Thoughtseize into Redundant Legendary, let's go. Alright, I'm going to seize their thoughts. Reb Ending Wrath. And 2 lands. I think Reb is by far the card I'm most worried about here. That's just the cleanest answer to everything I'm doing. And now that we've seen 2 clean answers to Tamiyo, I'm going to take this opportunity to ponder. I might still Tamiyo even if I hit my land drop. Okay, 3 cards that I'm not going to cast soon. I'll shuffle that away. And pass. As seeing their current hand highly incentivizes me to try to find land number 3 and shove Narset. Okay, no love there. I could Tamiyo, then Brainstorm, get the Planeswalker immediately. I could Brainstorm, then maybe still play Psychic Frog this turn, which is a much better card to have in play. But I'll go for the double here. Because they can't Wrath Tamiyo. Okay, tune the narrative's fine. They can't Wrath of the Skies Tamiyo Planeswalker. They could still Prismatic End it, but that's okay. Put back Murktide Rege and I guess Brazen Borrower. I'm not going to shuffle unless they give me something to stifle. I kind of like having Brazen Borrower around. I'll just plus Tamiyo and make them come to me. I guess the real question is, do I care about Brazen Borrower? I thought it was nice to have it around, but also, does it matter? There's the Prismatic Ending. Tamiyo still costs 1 on the back. That's how flip cards work. I'm actually off Brazen Borrower. What permanent am I worried about? I'm going to get the Undercity Sewers and try to select a little bit. Ponder. I don't turn down Ponders. Let's go. You got to live for something. Stand for something in the world. We got the known answer to Narset out of their hand. So now the plan I've been working towards of stick Narset and protect her is still live. Thoughtseize you, play Psychic Frog next turn. We've just turned off massive quantities of their deck. Every cantrip's bad now. Jace sucks now. Creature removal's bad. They kept their card on top, though. Whatever they were looking for, they found it. Lingus. Okay, yep, that's quite a good one. I'm going to pitch Stifle on that. I think we're past the Stifle phase of the game. Narset, load me up. Prismatic Ending that I can't cast due to how I fetched this game. No regrets. Thoughtseize ya. Take Wrath of the Skies. Stick Psychic Frog, and you're in check. They do have Mystic Sanctuary, then 3 islands, so they could set up a draw for next turn of Lingus or Wrath or Reb. Let's see what they prioritize here. Wrath of the Skies. They're prioritizing answering Psychic Frog over trying to mash through with something like 4th Aerlingus. I'm going to play Flooded Strand, and I'll attack. I'd love to come up with a Force of Will this turn, or some follow-up. There's a Force of Will. We did it. And once again, perfectly comfortable pitching Stifle in this situation. Wrath of the Skies now in their hand, and played a land, so we have full information. Force that. I think Daze is actually worse than Stifle at this point. My top card is Brazen Borrower. That does add to the clock. I don't think I want that. I'm gonna get a Tundra. I could have fetched Basic Plains there, but I kind of want them to think going into game 3 that stuff like Blood Moon is something I'm worried about. Orcish Bowmaster. I could refresh Narset, or I could just pass with Bowmaster up. I'm going to do that. If they have any miracles, I could stifle the miracle trigger. They could still just hardcast Terminus, but Entreat the Angels gets a lot harder to use in this environment. Looks like they... Oh, wow. Okay, this does nothing, because Narset's in play. We got them in the double squeeze. Bowmaster unlikely to trigger again because they can't draw cards. Sad, but sick. Alright, and I can fire Lorien Revealed here if nothing better comes my way. Let's actually do a combat count. So 3, they're on a 5-turn clock right now. If I discard 1 card, it becomes a 4-turn clock. And they're at 11. I don't think I need Stifle. Okay, I am not going to mess around with discarding cards I think are extra yet until I load up and see what I'm really working with. Lorien Revealed, and pass with 7 in hand. No counter spells here. If opponent does just flip a Terminus, they are right back in this game. Uh-oh. Oh no. 5 mana in the pool. Oh, come on. Narset's still in play. Stop doing stuff. Okay, cool. Brain Surge into Lorien Revealed. Neither one drew a card, and we're to the sideboard. That whole plan, my opening hand of Protect Narset, worked out great. Nile Spellbomb is a kind of passive cantrip that turns off Mystic Sanctuary, and if we're looking for a situation where any little bit matters, I could see Nile Spellbomb being better than like a Daze or a Stifle that, as we just saw, become just blue cards to pitch to Force or just material to discard a Frog at some point in the game. Consign to Memory also counters Mystic Sanctuary, but I'm not bringing in Consign to Memory. Consign to Memory also counters Miracle triggers. Yeah, I think Daze on the Draw is just not worth being a blue card, where Nile Spellbomb might literally do something. Okay, let's go. I am going to keep my hand. I think Thoughtseize is so redonkulously powerful versus blue-white control that it's worth keeping a hand on the strength of. I've played a lot of decks like the one my opponent's playing over the years, and Thoughtseize is the card I never, ever, ever want to see, ever. I'm just going to do it now and get a taste for what's going on over there. Yeah, this hand is not even good. Okay. Pyroblast doesn't hit orcs. Scalding Tarn doesn't get basic planes. I think I take... Enforce Will cost them 2 cards, but it's the best thing they have going on here. But if I take Force of Will and they draw Swords to Plowshares, I'm going to look very silly. I'm going to take Force of Will and try to walk them into a universe where I get to wasteland them. Like if they start fetching non-basics, like if they get Meticulous Archive here, I got them walked into a punish, I hope. They've seen Bowmaster and Stifle by now. Those are 2 things they should be thinking about with when they fetch, and if they have a Brainstorm in their hand, when to use it. Seeing Brain Surge and Lorien Revealed in their deck is sick, though, for my Narset sideboard plan. Oh, wow. Basic Mountain was the fetch here. What are we doing with all these? Basic Mountain, Basic Plains. Literally just playing around Stifle? Okay. Stifle and Wasteland. But those fetches mean that this Wrath of the Skies is not castable, which is mostly fine. Like, you don't need to cast it right now. It didn't Brain Surge in response. That's good news. We know half their hand right now. Murktide Regent. I'm going to play my land first in case they have something like Hull Breacher. I can remove it, but I do plan to cast Brainstorm here. And if they fire off Pyroblast on this, that's fine. Psychic Frog, Narset. The Wasteland plan has not really materialized. I can put back one of them for sure. When am I going to need this Sheoldred's Edict is the real question. If they shove Jace right now, I'm going to wish I had it. No, that's fine. I'm going to go to combat, and then I'll probably fetch Tundra and cast Ponder off of it, second main. This unlocks all my colors. I have my base colors on basics if they do play a block piece. Did I shuffle or not? These are literally the 2 cards I just put back. Okay. Shuffle Truthers. Eating good right now. I'm going to shuffle again. And I'll pass. So they're sitting hard on this Pyroblast. If I draw my other Thoughtseize, I could take it and cast Narset in the same turn. Their list is insanely soft to Narset. Prismatic Ending, that's fair. I'm still doing damage. I still got a 2-for-1. And they tapped out of Pyroblast for the turn, which means I can shove Narset right now. And then they have to Pyroblast on their turn, so I can't Narset again. And then I can resolve the other Narset, and she could be the sticky one. It stays in play for a while. Love that Force of Will. Put that right there. Okay. Narset will be another 2-for-1 if she gets Pyroblasted immediately. I'm sandbagging this Wasteland. I don't even think I'll play it out. I guess if I play Wasteland, I could go Narset and Frog next turn. That's good enough. I will play it out. I was about to say I'm going to hide it just so they get confident and try to fix their mana. And then I could cut it out from under them rather than fetching a second basic. But just casting 2 spells with Force backup is better. Snapcaster Mage. Okay. This is a cool way they've decided to fight this. The Prismatic Ending can clear the Orc army. The Snapcaster has caught up to the card advantage lost on Orcish Bowmaster, and that can attack Narset, which means they can hold on to Pyroblast. And I really don't have removal in my deck right now. Activate Narset. JK, I have 1 removal spell in my deck. There it is. I'll take Sheoldred's Edict. Play Wasteland. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Please put Snapcaster Mage into the graveyard. And Black-Blue, Psychic Frog. Now we've got the difficult decision of going after Frog or Narset. And I can protect one if I even want to. Like, I might just let them... Okay. That makes it worse. I was going to say I might just let them Pyroblast Frog and then play Murktide. Okay. They're going in the main phase. That's good. If they waited for my end step, they wouldn't have been able to cast a Ponder, but I wouldn't have been able to play out a second Narset. Like I said, I played a lot of decks like theirs, and this spot they're in where it's like, you can't cast any double color spells, you only have 3 mana, you might even have like Ponder, Brainstorm in hand, but you can still only cast 1 spell per turn. Like, it's not free to play these mana bases. I usually think they're worth trying, especially in formats we think are going to be about tempo, but that is it's a tough spot that they're in right now. Ooh, look at me hitting 4 lands right to the bottom. The Whiff Apocalypse. Another Force of Will or a Brainstorm. I guess I want the Brainstorm next turn, which means I put the Force in my hand now. And they just went draw go. They're incentivized to kill Narset before I get to my main phase, before she finds another card, and they didn't do that. I'm gonna operate as if they don't have Red Blast. A Nile Spellbomb is a cantrip where Stifle just hangs out. Stifle is actually a full counter on Terminus right now because they're on 3 mana. And if they are desperate for mana, this hits the next fetch land. It's also blue for the forces, so you win. Do I want to brainstorm here? I think I do. I could have just played Murktide. I don't need Prismatic Ending, and can actually just get rid of this Stifle that I just had that whole conversation about keeping. But now they have to think about Stifle and maybe play around it, even though I don't have it. That's fun. I'm making my first Murktide kind of medium-sized because I have a second one, and they've demonstrated they have a deck with a lot of one-for-one answers to a Murktide. Tune the narrative in the end step. They do have a draw available. They have 4 energy in the bank just from tuning the narrative a couple times, which means Wrath of the Skies for X equals 3 does kill Murktide Regent if they can find 2 more lands. I think if I untap here, I win with Murktide, because I could hard cast these forces moving forward. I'm going to fetch in my upkeep. I don't need the Snow Plains. I'm just going to get Underground Sea. Delta 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, playing out Delta gives me Force of Will or Negation. And this is why I left some cards in the graveyard last turn. Now we have the double Merc, big Smashies, double Force available. I can counter 2 spells any turn and 3 spells if they space them out over the rest of the game. But there's only 1 more turn this game if they don't do something right now. They'd have to have White Source Supreme Verdict right now is the only thing I'm actually worried about. Yep, and we got the GGs in the chat. Tough on the land situation, but that is the flip side of building a rock solid mana base against disruption, is that sometimes it's just hard to put it into play in the first place. GG's, Sideboard Narset's MVP, let's go.
This video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, the easiest way to build Magic decks online. Moxfield supports over 30 formats, including Legacy and everything else you'll see on this channel. There's multiple customizations so you can interact with your deck how you want. Views such as text, grid, or stacks. And groupings like type, subtype, color, color identity, even artist. The site offers light mode, dark mode, and so much more. However you want to see your deck, Moxfield can provide it for you. Follow my Moxfield to keep up with the channel and what I'm playing in paper. I'll see you there.
I'm on the play for round number 2. I am going to keep because my hand has Ponder in it. You know the rules. Island Ponder, baby. Psychic Frog and Stifle. I like access to both of these cards. Put Stifle in the hand, and then I will decide where I'm going to dance this frog into. Whether I just, if they're Eldrazi, I'll just shove it. If they're some blue deck, we might dance around a little bit. Nethergoyf, okay. That one's a little spooky. I could waste them, hold up Stifle, try to just flip the script on them. Them having a 1-drop, like wasting and stifling and dazing into active pressure is generally not advisable in tempo mirrors, but I think Nethergoyf is small enough compared to something like a Delver. And I having the Stifle to back it up, this is exactly the sequence I wanted. The second land doesn't grow Goyf, and now I can shove Psychic Frog and I don't have to think about days. And Psychic Frog is definitely better than Nethergoyf. Okay, let's see if this works. Playing on basics. If I can hide that I'm even a white deck until the sideboard games, that would be very good for me. They do have a basic Swamp, which represents Fatal Push. If they attack here, I think they have Fatal Push, and if they don't attack, I think that they don't have Fatal Push. Okay, I think they don't have Fatal Push. Because if they attack here, I discard a card, they push, they're up a card. I think that would have been a good attack if it was actually there, which makes me think it wasn't actually there. And I'm going to attack and see if they block. Because if they don't attack or block, then they definitely don't have removal. I'm not going to jump the frog, though, with Murktide in here. Okay. So now we might be in a situation where they're daring me to discard a card. They could cycle Troll or something like that. I don't even know if Troll would be in decks anymore, post-Grief, but they could cycle Troll. Okay, I'm going to discard Undercity Sewers and just see where we end up. Okay, we ended up with a dead Nethergoyf. I was correct that they did not have Interaction. I can just shove a 5/5 Murktide right here, and I think that sounds pretty good. TBH. And I'm going to take a bit of a gamble. I could get Tundra here, turn on all the white cards in my deck if this game ends up going longer, but I feel like I'm ahead in a way that they're going to struggle to come back from, which means I'm going to try to just act like I'm Dimir and win the game with the cards that I have. Underground Sea. Ponder. Yeah, if Murktide Region wasn't in my deck, I would have jumped Frog and been up a card last turn rather than down a card, but they also lost Nethergoyf over that. They did not shuffle Ponder. Okay, there's the Plow. In for 7. I could make it 11 if I'm willing to discard my whole hand and then jump. Or I could make it 13 if I was willing to discard my whole hand and then jump the Frog, but we don't need to do that. I'm going to Brainstorm first. A Force of Will, Wasteland, Plains. I'm going to put back Plow and Plains and then Wasteland my opponent. If I can keep them in the garbage and get over the finish line, I'm good with that. Fatal Push, waited too long, now I have Force in hand. I didn't have it when the turn started, or on their turn. Daze, that does save their land from Wasteland, but it does not save them from the impending Psychic Frog. I also just realized I stacked my thing backwards there. I should have put the Plow on top because I'm holding a white source already. You got a Frog, I got a Frog. Everyone's frogging, and because I stacked backwards, I'm now going to get blown out. Damn, I'm so dumb. All right. So I can make a 4/4 Frog. They can make a 5-power Frog. If they jump their Frog, it makes Nethergoyf worse. If I jump my Frog, it makes Murktide better. The more they commit makes my Source of Plowshares better next turn. Okay, I am going to attack, and I'm going to jump my Frog. Yeah, I was just like too focused on Plains plus Plow, cast Plow out of nowhere, when just obviously Polluted Delta is also a white source. Plow could be in my hand right now, and we could get a giant blowout. But instead, we'll do this. But if they want to engage with my Frog in combat, it's going to cost them most of their hand, and this 7/7 Murktide is still around. And first action's on them to discard a card. And if they just want to touch tips with the Frogs, discard one card, they have to discard another one to kill my Frog. I don't need this Polluted Delta. I'm going to discard that. I want to flush their hand. Okay. Now it's up to them if they want to beat my Frog and go down to one card in hand. I can't actually discard anymore if I want to cast Swords to Plowshares this game. Okay. Their Frog's going to kill my Frog. They go to 5. I draw Swords to Plowshares and hope that we get it from there. I also could still get out of this game without revealing white because Murktide's just lethal. They are deciding to draw a card rather than hold back their blocker, which means they can already answer Murktide or they didn't do combat math. And giving my opponent benefit of the doubt, generally you want to assume your opponent isn't a complete brick. They Thoughtseize, they see the Plains. Disappointing. We didn't get away with hiding the white, but we weren't going to anyway because I have to kill this Tamiyo. And here's this all stacked up. How I put it wrongly last turn, but ended up getting rewarded. Okay. Teferi actually seems dope. And now we're in the universe where we have to solve for Frog v Frog mirror matches, which was always going to be the result of a ban list that didn't include Psychic Frog. Do we cut Force of Will because it is traditionally not desirable in tempo mirrors? Or do we need Force of Will to get Frog superiority? Like if I stick a Frog and they don't, I'm winning, and vice versa. And Force of Will is an answer to Frog. It's also a very easy cut. If I want to bring in all these sort of things and become the mid-range Esper deck, it'd be just a little bigger than the dedicated Dimir deck. Need Children's Edict. Maybe Thoughtseize, probably not though. I don't think Stifle is actually that good here either, especially on the draw. Daze is nice on the play and draw because we're going to be a generally low resource game most of the time. Bowmaster's good, all my white removal's good. I'm not going to have room for this Thoughtseize, and I might even cut the one that is already in. Just focus on beating the cards that are in play. Though Thoughtseizing an opponent is so good. Like, not only do you get to take their best card, but you get to plan the whole game around the cards they have left. Okay. I am going to bring in all these. I'll leave it Thoughtseize. All my Stifles and Forces are out, and I'm just going to try to play to the board plus days. Let's do it. Okay. Basic blue-black and stuff to do. I'll keep. They're fetching on turn 1. Basic Island is not going to cast Necrogoyf. It might cast Tamiyo, and it did. Wasteland. I don't have a target for that. I'm going to do my best impression of their opening play with this. Murktide and some lands. None of that is what I need. I'm going to shuffle. Ponder. Happier with that than any of the cards we just saw. I'd like a removal spell, though, before it's too late. Tamiyo's doing her thing. I'll have to Daze a Frog here, which is actually devastating because then I'll have no permanents in play versus their many permanents. Their play wasn't Frog, though. Teferi's an interesting object. I could go for my own Frog here, or I could go for Bowmaster here. Bowmaster makes Tamiyo considerably worse. Frog is just the best card, though. I don't think I want to lead on Frog. I don't want that to be my first test of their interaction in the game. I think Bowmaster untap shove Teferi is pretty nice, though. I'm going to Bowmaster now and maybe get a shot at this Nethergoyf. Okay, they floated a mana and dazed. That does answer the Bowmaster, but now that mana is floating in combat rather than in the main phase where the options of what to cast with it are lower. Just busting a clue, that's fine. And this means they get to replay that land second main, and I can cast Teferi. I'm just going to keep testing dazes. If I get dazed again, that sucks, but Teferi's so messed up to have in play. Let's clear this Goyf, draw a card. Alright, cool. Now not only do they not have daze because they would have dazed Teferi, but they don't have any instance at all. I'm also 13 cards into my deck without seeing a removal spell, which I play something like 8 or 10 of. Hopefully we can resolve that this turn cycle and take this pressure off for good. Wasted my scrub land is really good, but I did find the basic planes off the Teferi rip. And now Frog is uncontestable even. I think I want to start with Brainstorm, though, because there are cards here I don't care about, though I could Wasteland them and play Frog, and then my Daze is really good. That's what I'm going to do. Wasteland you, play Frog, plus Teferi. Now I have the better thing in play. I have instants, you don't. Despite opponent being on the play, my Daze is now really exciting. JK, no it's not. Now everything's dead. Okay. I really wanted that Wasteland to do its job, and it didn't. So Teferi's going to die here. That did buy me a bunch of time. These 3 clues still matter, though. Even if I answer Tamiyo and she never flips, that's still a long-term issue of you just have 3 cards over there. I could shove a 4/4 Murktide, or I could Brainstorm and try to make my hand better. I'm going to do that. Swords of Plowshares received. I can put back Plains and Tundra, and then fetch the Plains and plow the Goyf. Am I more worried about Goyf than Tamiyo, I guess is the question. They could just flip Tamiyo here, though. That's really bad for me. Alright, I'm going to go after the Goyf. And now we have comparable resources in play, comparable cards in hand. They're generating a clue every turn that could become a Planeswalker at some point. Wrath of the Skies does kill all the clues. And now I've committed a Swords to Plowshares. They might have been holding back a Frog. Into Turok. Yikes. Alright, well. It hit the worst 2 cards in my hand. Good job, me. Days of Floodstrand got to keep the Murktide in the Ponder. Into Turok is a hot one, though. Good job, opponent, for having that. I'm just going for the largest Murktide I can make. 7/7. Can't Fatal Push that. Can Edict, can Brazen Borrower. It's not that I expect them to have 0 answers to a Murktide in their deck. It's just, it was the best thing I could do there. Brazen Borrower confirmed. The 5th clue token generated. Still no cards actually drawn. Or no, the turn they dazed, I think they drew a card. So they've generated 6 clues and drawn 1 card off that. Lorien revealed Thoughtseize. This is too slow. Shuffle the Ponder. Swords of Plowshares. I'm gonna hit the Goyf again. And I am gonna Wasteland because they have a 3-drop and they have just massive mana sink there in the pile of clues. They know my hand is Murktide. Psychic Frog when the dust settles. Horrible, horrible, terrifying. Daze just right after that. Perfect. Here's Murktide. It's a 5/5, which does not beat Psychic Frog in combat because of the clue token. Oh, now it does. Okay, that's good. Then playing out that bauble means they don't have advantage in combat anymore. Yeah, I don't think they did the math. Eating clues now. Frog can become 4/5. Okay, we bought it our first turn of stability in the entire game, but Frog can attack next turn. Oh, now I have a Frog, and they know it. They saw this on top of my deck. But they have more cards in hand, which means they're winning the Frog game. And there's no spells in my graveyard, so Murktide getting bigger, not a thing that's going to happen here. Brainstorm flips Tamiyo immediately. Also makes Daze better, which anything I can find value on at this point is good news. Wasteland can kill my Underground Sea. I'm going to float black if they waste me, so I could still Daze off of the island. Fatal Push. Well, they did a great job playing around that. Good sequencing all around. Okay. Though, this sequencing does leave them still unable to attack with Psychic Frog. They could have attacked with Psychic Frog first and then did everything they did that turn. Yo. Okay. I'm going to attack Tamiyo. I have exactly enough to kill her. They have exactly enough cards in hand to jump Frog, and it doesn't die. It just bounces off the Murktide. Okay, please don't have Force of Will. Wow, they do have Force of Will. Okay, so that's something I talked about in sideboarding of, is this even a card we want in the mirror match? And exactly the position I was describing of, if they, like, having Frog when your opponent doesn't is worth any spew of advantage. But if this was just like Orcish Bowmaster or Nethergoyf or Brazen Borrower, that Force of Will would have been a terrible exchange. So that's just, maybe you leave in like 1 or 2 forces for spots exactly like this, but it's not a matchup where you want 4 of them. Dismember, yeah, that gets it done. Okay, deck full of removal. Can we find one? Not today. That does get either the second white or a Surveil land. And now the clues are starting to cash in. Just, they're right back up to 4 cards. Psychic Frog hits. They have 5 cards in hand with 4 more in the bank. Brazen Borrower still just over there. Nethergoyf. And the card I need to draw is Wrath of the Skies, but I think I need to use my Surveil land to try to find a situation where that's possible. Right on time, Children's Edict. I'm actually gonna bin that because I need Wrath of the Skies here and no other card. Okay, Lorien revealed. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They can okay, all their forces are still in. And in a spot where you're up 5 cards in the mid game, Force Will looks brilliant. So thinking about my life now. Now I'm on the play with Daze. They have Hymn to Tarok in their deck. I'm not convinced Force is right. I am convinced there are spots where Force will look right. I'm not convinced it is right. Also, their deck is different than mine because I have 8 white removal spells and they have 0 white removal spells. Yeah, I think I'm just putting this deck back into the field, and now I'm on the play. I'll keep this. I want to lead on my Undercity Sewers and just try to smooth out these opening turns. Bobble. Looking at my top card. That won't be there later. They're fetching in response to my fetch. They've seen Stifle out of me. I doubt they're going to Stifle me, though. Yeah, they're just playing around Stifle. A card that is not currently in my deck. I'll keep this Brainstorm. Flooded Strand first. Maybe I'm supposed to let them Daze the Brainstorm because it's such an aggressive daze. Put back Tundra and Underground Sea. How much respect do I give Wasteland here? I could just try to small ball them. Daze, I want to cast Thoughtseize right now. And this is the flip side of playing out the land first to play around Daze. I would have preferred to just play Underground Sea, Wasteland them, have more lands in my hand. Okay. I did not give myself the opportunity to do that, so I'm just going to fetch Underground Sea and Thoughtseize them. If they Daze this, they have no permanence. Also, fetching this basic island means that they can't Hymn to Tarok me next turn. Daze, Bowmaster, Brazen Borrower, Tamiyo. And Tamiyo is very bad with Narset in play. Bowmaster is good against Narset. Daze is good against Narset. I'm going to take their Daze. I just think getting Narset into play versus this hand is going to be an important milestone in my life and development. Basic Swamp right now. Nethergoyf. Okay. They drew the ability to double spell. Okay. But that wasn't the spell I was worried about. I was worried about them getting 2 creatures down on the turn where I am not really ready to deal with that. I can deal with 1 creature right now. Do I want to Brainstorm? Brainstorm could stick a frog for me here. Could also just Plow. They did not shuffle Ponder. We know 3 other cards right now. Wasteland's not even that bad. We saw the trick that they did last turn, or last game, where they waste me, I Brainstorm, they Bowmaster, I daze the Bowmaster, picking up the land that they're in the middle of wasting. Psychic Frog. That can regrettably resolve. Yeah, they sequence that extremely well. Opponent knows how to play the little edges in these games. There's a double white card that might be good someday, but currently sucks. I'm going to put back Wrath and Frog. I'm just going to redraw the Frog. Okay. Yep, Wasteland worked. We know their whole hand right now. Narset just dies to Frog. I don't have to minus her, but I want to. Okay, I'll play my Wasteland and my Frog. Their Frog is better than my Frog. And they have Brazen Borrower. If they draw a land and can play around days, that's going to be really disappointing. And now they just have Frog advantage, which means that because their Frog is bigger on the first attack, it's going to be bigger forever. Yeah, brutal. This gameplay sucks. Why did they leave this card legal? Okay. Guess you win now. Brainstorm resolves. Okay. They didn't have a shuffle on that Brainstorm, which means that my Frog gets a chance to connect here. I could Daze, a Dismember, or Fatal Push, both of which are cards we've seen in their deck. And their Frog is so fucking big. It's just like, Narset, even if I don't minus, just dies. I'm gonna have to Brainstorm here. Okay, white mana Bowmasters. These cards, these things are both good. I'm gonna bury the Narset back a little bit, though the Wrath is also not close to being cast. Okay, Wrath and Narset can go back. I have a Ponder as well. I could move cards around. I am not going to move cards around, though. I'm going to play the Tundra. I understand that exposes me to Wasteland in a way that I didn't need to, but it also represents Plow in a way that I want them to have to think about. Okay, they're attacking with Frog. I'm going to Bowmaster here, because if they Bowmaster back, I get a good Daze. Generally, having the first Bowmaster is a mistake, because then theirs kills yours. I'm hoping to flip the script here. But if they have Force of Will, a card that they've included in their deck that I haven't, that is annoying. Okay, I can't block this because Bowmaster is the only archer in Magic without reach. Can't block. They draw a card, which will trigger Bowmaster, which will force them to discard a card to Frog, which they have plenty of. Discarded him to Turok. That's gone. That probably means they didn't find a black source, or they just don't think my hand is that good. If they drew a land to clear my Bowmaster, okay. Fatal Push Frog. Correctly identified that that's actually the worst card here for them. Okay. Narset can dig. Ponder also digs. Ponder has to see the Wrath of the Skies again. I want to Ponder. This Wrath of the Skies is so close to being good, but also just isn't. I'm gonna full shuffle here. We did it. Okay. Plow Psychic Frog in an environment where I can Daze. If they give me something to Daze, I can actually cast Narset here, which I can't do otherwise. Okay. I get to push 1 damage through this turn. If they fear a second Bowmaster, I get 2 damage through. Cool. My entire universe is just built on the back of this Daze right now. If they find the land to play around Daze with their Bowmaster clear mine, they're going to be so far ahead. Sick. Okay. I'm going to cast Daze on the hard cast. We did it. We fended off their Bowmaster, and now I can try to shove Narset onto this board, which makes Tamiyo into garbage. Especially if, oh god, 2 Psychic Frogs to the bottom of the deck. Not only did I miss, but I sent 2 copies of my best card to the bottom. Alright. I was about to say, especially if Tamiyo does any, or if Narset finds an additional piece of pressure or action here, like a Prismatic Ending or Daze, whatever, would have been great. Tamiyo gets in. They've got a Bloodstained Mire. They found a land after all this time. We know their hand is 4 spells because they haven't played a land in 3 turns. And they have Psychic Frog, a card that is very good. And I drew a land. I also drew Swords to Plowshares. We take those. In times of trouble, Mother Plowshares comes to me. And pushing damage. Brazen Borrower is still over there. I don't care much about that card right now. I'll play out the Scrub land. Probably going to hold the Swamp for Brainstorms or Psychic Frogs in the future, but I do have cards that cost double white in my deck. Another Goyf is large. And I just sent Nile Spellbomb to the bottom of my deck with Narset. Okay, this shuffle is interesting. Because on the one hand, it doesn't do anything. On the other hand, I know Psychic Frog and Nile Spellbomb are at the bottom of my deck. Dismember my Bowmaster, Brazen Borrow, my Orc Army, kill Narset, GG. Yep. That one turn they had with Frog just sculpting was everything. Okay, so they're not being aggressive with Brazen Borrower to clear the Narset. They're not worried about that yet. I'm happy to keep Narset in play for an extra turn. They see the top card of my deck. This is a little awkward because it's not generally how you use fetch lands, but I just know so many good cards are on the bottom of my deck right now. You draw for Bauble, that's your draw for turn. And Polluted Delta. I hate my life! Okay, we've lost. I'm being a little dramatic, but only a little, because Wrath of the Skies is my only way to get back to a spot of stability. And now they can start flipping Tamiyo and stuff. Never had to use the Brazen Borrower, which means my next threat doesn't work either. Ponder, this means that if they sack a clue, they get Planeswalker Tamiyo. Smashing Bloodstained Mire into the graveyard. Clue gets Tamiyo. And then I'm going to be in the lock. Now the Wrath isn't even good. Yep, we're dead. Okay. Yeah, they just had redundant, resilient pressure, which overwhelmed my deck that has many of the same core cards as their deck, like the Bowmaster, the Frog, the Tamiyo, but then they have a big 1-drop and efficient removal and just kind of Xerox stuff of 56 card deck with the Bauble. They probably have fewer lands than me, and while I'm flooding out and trying to make Narset connect and stuff, they're just like, yeah, 5/6. Here's another 5/6. Have fun with that. And that was a informative set for Frog versus Frog matchups. Also seeing them leaving in Force of Wills in a matchup that historically we wouldn't do that, but it was perfect because it kept Psychic Frog in play. Maybe I played out too many lands, and we need to be thinking about Psychic Frog's size from the moment you put it in your deck during deck build. Like 3 lands is enough. I just need my Frog to be bigger than their Frog on that first combat turn, and then their Frog is frozen. Yeah, that's gonna be a interesting and skill testing, but also deeply miserable part of the format for as long as Psychic Frog remains legal. On to the next round. Welcome to TopDeck.gg, your community's home for everything competitive Magic has to offer. If you're hosting an event, playing for a huge prize, or advertising your events to thousands of players, we've got you covered. Using intuitive pairing software, playing Magic is a breeze. Players just have to sign up online, then scan the QR code in-store. Give competitors the gift of perfect information as their bracket updates in real time. The self-reporting software saves you time and leaves paper match slips in the past. Leave the heavy lifting to TopDeck.gg so your community can relax and focus on playing Magic. I'm on the draw for round 3. I have Tamiyo into Frog. Let's do it. Opponent kept 7 and has a Dryad Arbor. I'm incentivized to just Wasteland this thing. Oh, now I don't need to Wasteland it. Now I can Swords to Plowshare it, but Wasteland might be better because I could plow the next thing they do. Yeah, okay. Generally, the thing about Dryad Arbor just being played as your first land drop, it means that your hand is either terrible or your hand is insane if you stick the Dryad Arbor. And either way, I want to punish that play and make them do something normal. Okay, we've got a Tropical Island and a Ponder. Okay. Tropical Island's a little surprising because the primary Dryad Arbor decks in the format are Depths or Cradle Control, so this is probably Nadu. That would be the other Green Sun Zenith strategy that would be interested in a Tropical Island. Now Nado I am actually excited to explore as the format evolves. The oppressive boot of grief is off our necks now, and we can do honest, completely broken bird gaming. I suspect this double plow is going to be really good, which is why I went with Tamiyo first. I could have played Undercity Sewers tapped, next turn play Psychic Frog, turn after that have plow Tamiyo, but I think plow is going to be good enough that we just want access to that as early as possible. Delighted Halfling. Not a card I want in play. Undercity Sewers trigger. I kind of do want another land here. Plow Halfling. And get my first of hopefully many treasures or clues, whatever these are. What if they were treasures? That would be sick if Tamiyo was just Ragavan. No, these are clues. Okay, land number 3 could be Teferi, which I am ice cold to. Could be Nadu, which I'm going to have to feed them a card, but they will be able to play through. All right, Leovold is just Nadu. Same thing. I have the plow. I'm ready. And I believe I would rather plow this Leovold than Prismatic ending it, just because I'd like to get Psychic Frog into play if I can. That's gone. They drew a card. I could brainstorm up a Planeswalker, but Psychic Frog, just what the format's about right now. Got a Verdant Catacombs, mana number 4. They can now Zenith for Nadu. Zenith X equals 3. Seems likely to be what's happening. They could get Moloch here and fight my Psychic Frog, but they'd lose that fight. Yeah, just Nadu. Just a little Nadu guy. And I have held interaction this long. The white card's being huge in this matchup. They got a Nadu trigger. Bayou's in play now. Did not have the follow-up Force of Will, but I am out of interaction, but I'm also connecting with Psychic Frog. We'll see where this goes. They still have 4 cards in hand. And me without a Force of Will. Okay. Pass the turn. Black, black, green. This could be Grist. Okay, Grist. I'm not really worried about Grist on the first arrival. Okay, now I'm worried about Grist. Because it needs a creature to do Grist things, and it costs them a bonus creature to do this. But pressure's off. Frog's gone. I have another one, because I've connected with Frog once, which means I'm going to have Frogs forever. I'm being slightly glib, but that is how it feels. Once you connect with Frog, you're just rolled up for life. Okay, I finally got a blocker for Tamiyo in play. Lucky. I am going to attack Grist. It didn't block, coward. Okay. I'm going to brainstorm because I want to flip Tamiyo and find some better cards. Flooded Strand can definitely go back, and now we're in an interesting spot because Murktide is pretty big and pretty good. I always love a brainstorm, but I have 4 clues, Tamiyo, and Psychic Frog at this point. I'm actually going to get rid of brainstorm. Maybe keeping Daze is insane at this juncture. Yeah, I probably should have got rid of Daze. Frog. And I am just going to cast Ponder. Underground Sea, Ponder. If I could find something like Force of Will, I'd be a lot happier. Ponder more lands. Gonna shuffle. Brainstorm. Here we are. They're down to 3 cards in hand. They have a Grist that can't kill a creature this turn. But if they start shredding, if they've been sandbagging a Nomad and just come up with Nadu off the top, we are very dead. Grist plus minus lost to Zenith. Tamiyo can rebuy a Plow this turn, which will clear Grist because I kill Bird, jump Frog, discard a card. We're very close to doing good stuff right now. Ponder. Shuffle the library. Love to see it. Living Wish, holy smokes. Well, if they wish for Nadu, my daze is actually on. The daze that I should have put away. But 3 drops probably look pretty tempting out of that sideboard right now. Funny story about Living Wish. Many, many years ago, Ely Cassis top-8'd a big Legacy tournament with a green-black depths variant featuring Living Wish. And I immediately ran out and spec'd on like 30 copies of it. It was like $1.50, single printing, rare from Judgment. And not only did the price not spike, but also this set, Magic 25, came out shortly after that and just reprinted it into the dirt. So I have a lot of Judgment Living Wishes in my closet. I should check the price. Did Nadu finally move the needle? Okay, that daze was messed up. I'm glad I kept it. Now I can determine my sequencing here. If I play Murktide first, Jumping Frog and minusing Tamiya will both make it bigger. That sounds right. A Daze, Ponder, Brainstorm, land, just leave some spells in there. Here's Murktide. Return Swords to Plowshares to my hand. Murktide gets bigger. Jump Psychic Frog, leaving Prismatic Ending in the graveyard. This barely matters, but I already have 2 plows in my hand, so I just want to diversify a little bit. Attack Grist the Hunger Tide, and I'm actually going to discard Brainstorm because I believe that to be the worst card in my hand, which is a crazy thing to say, but it is true right now. Okay, I think I leave up Swords to Plowshares or Clue activation rather than add a second frog to the board, because this is a creature combo deck, and if I have the shields up, I just got to make sure I don't die right now. Okay. Frog Gaming kept steady frog pressure up. Their deck doesn't really draw cards, not in a traditional sense. They are a deck full of creatures. They are a combo deck. We saw a lot of lands that were not basic. This appeared to be a full 4-color deck. They have a lot of mana dorks and Delighted Halfling. Although I got a miracle late game daze, that game I'm not going to rely on it. Orcish Bowmaster is probably mid here, honestly. I think Stifle is probably mid here. And killing a Birds of Paradise is insane with Orcish Bowmaster. They're a cantrip deck too. Yeah, I guess I have to leave those in. Maybe Teferi's not as good as I want it to be. I could also play 1 Harbinger, because if they have mana dorks, the Harbinger does less. But my plan is to wipe out the mana dorks. I also can't Wrath of the Skies with a Harbinger in play. I only have 1 basic white. But if I have 1, I probably shouldn't need the other. At least, that's my theory. That's what I'm going to go with. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this last Stifle. I'm not going to bring in Teferi, and just some extra interaction. Opponent said in the chat they tried some Esper Tamiyo and thought that blue-black ended up being better and smoother because Fatal Push beats most of the format anyway, which is what we experienced last game. But in this matchup, where they have bigger creatures and they don't wasteland you, it actually looks really good to have the white lands and white mana, white interaction. I'm keeping this hand on the strength of white interaction. I really wish this Undercity Sewers was any other blue source in my deck to get Ponder going faster, but they didn't lead on a mana dork, so we got the pressure off. I might even just wasteland here. Okay, so they didn't lead on a mana dork, which kind of gives me a turn to sculpt. Force of Will. I do want that card, but not more than I want to land. Another Ponder. That doesn't mean they're not playing a mana dork this turn. Just means they haven't done it yet. Nomads on board. Opponent is ready to jam whenever. Psychic Frog that I cannot cast. I'm going to Brainstorm here. I want to significantly change my hand if I can. Turns out I can't. Okay, I'm going to put back 2 plows and then wasteland my opponent. I'm going to take them off green and white. If they're not delivering mana dorks and I'm not applying pressure, attacking their mana is the best thing I can do. Green Sun Zenith is very good at finding whatever you need in the toolbox, but it also makes each of those cards cost 1 more than it should. Like you're spending 3 mana for a 2 mana effect, you're spending 2 mana for a 1 mana effect, etc. Which comes up big when your opponent can wasteland and daze you. I'm hoping right now to just strand a bunch of Zeniths and Nadus and junk in their hand with a double wasteland while I get my situation under control over here. If their hand is like 3rd land Nadu Force of Will, attacking their mana is really the only way through this anyway. Springheart Nantuko onto the Nomad. Okay. Combo almost fully operational over there. Drawing Swords to Plowshares this turn. I think I want to Ponder first. And I do want to Ponder because I want to be able to shuffle, which Brainstorm can't do. And I am going to shuffle this. This just doesn't do what I needed to here, which is come up with white mana. There's a Force. Take you off green again. And hope for white mana to arrive. At this point, though, them just making land drops is threatening. If they just play a fetch land, add 2 1/1s to the board, I am just bleeding out. Yep, here it comes. I do get to play Psychic Frog this turn. Oof, delighted halfling. I could force this. I really hate this, but I think it's right, given my mana denial, and the force isn't going to work if they have halfling anyway. Okay, white mana achieved. I think I am going to prismatic ending the Nomad. I could prismatic ending the Springheart Nantuko, but the Nomad is the real combo. Okay. Survive the game, drag the game into turn 5. We both have 2 mana, and they haven't stuck a Nadu yet. They have 3 mana sources in their graveyard that I put there, but they have 3 power on board. And let's hope Psychic Frog with Swords to Plowshares up is enough to move this game forward next turn. Another fetch land, 5 power on board. At this point, they're just racing Psychic Frog. Zenith for 1. This could be a delighted halfling, could be something worse than that for me. But they saw me force delighted halfling, so prioritizing that makes a lot of sense. We are dragging into the phase of the game where Wrath of the Skies is completely messed up, but I do need to get there. It doesn't just happen. Lush Portico, selecting for that draw, getting another insect. Grist is uncounterable, and Swords to Plowshares doesn't help me. If it's Nadu, I can just clear it, give them their cantrip, and move on with life. 3 cards in hand, and they kept that on top, though. I have concerns. Ponder. An uncounterable legend is coming. Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Okay, I'm less worried about that one than other options, and I'm not going to plow it here because they're a Nadu combo deck. I get 1 frog attack here, and they didn't spew in with the token, so I actually get more than that now. Okay, jump the frog. Do I want to surveil first? I don't think so. Exile the non-spells from my graveyard. Attack with my big ol' flying frog. Or my itty-bitty sweet little flying frog, in this case. Brazen Borrower. That card has words on it. Okay. I have 2 removal spells now. Oh, right. My Surveilland's in hand. I'm glad I didn't try to surveil before I attacked. Or in play. That was turn 1. They can make an uncounterable Uro this turn, who can get Sword to Plowshared or Brazen Borrowed. Yep, this is happening. I think I want to bounce this before it makes the land, or before it draws a card, just in case they draw a way to stop that. Did not put a land into play again. Their hand is 6 spells. One of them's Uro. Attacking me for 5, which does put me dead on board if Delighted Halfling also attacks, but I have Swords to Plowshares. Harbinger of the Seas. Interesting item there. Attacking with Frog. Drew Tameo. Okay. Can I hold the fort with what I've got? If I go Plow Harbinger, can I beat these Nantukos? And I think that I can. Oh, bummer. I have to fetch. That's going to cost me a life. Oh, no, I don't. Never mind. I'm good. Harbinger of the Seas, please resolve, please resolve, please resolve. I built my whole plan around this. Hail Mary. No! That sucks. Okay. Now I have to fetch. Underground Sea, Tameo. I'm going to go to 1 on this attack. If they have a removal spell, I lose. I went for the lock. They had me beat on every other resource. This Nantuko has just been massively insane. Just as printed. Didn't even do any Nadu stuff. Living Wish can get Caracas and clear the way here. My finger's on the button. Just show me the Caracas. Okay, they found the line. You did it. Okay. That is a case of having too much reaction and not enough pressure, which is a thing that can happen. You've seen the Harbinger now. Do I want 1 Harbinger to beat Teferi or Narset? I still haven't seen a basic land out of them. I don't know. I feel like this card's going to be good. I'm going to carry on with my plan, except now I'm on the play where everything's better. I like the 2 plows. I'm going to keep. This hand obviously has problems, which is that it only has the splash color basic in the entire deck to play Magic on. But it does kill the first 2 mana dorks, forces the first payoff, wastelands the first land. I have a lot of denial of their plan. And if I find Island and get to start pondering, I'll feel like we're doing stuff. Bayou, Birds of Paradise, okay. Those are both dead. Plow the bird. There's Psychic Frog laughing at me with its blue-black mana cost. And this is going to be the important turn cycle. If they don't play a mana dork, I get to hold on to my plow for a minute. If I draw a land, we're okay. They did play a mana dork. I am plowing it immediately. All right, deck. Island. Thoughtseize, LOL. Okay. Now we just see if that mana denial, I took 3 mana out from under them in the first 2 turns of the game. We'll see if that can convert to a spot where I'm casting spells. Rainstorm, okay. And they have a land drop. And the lesson here with this keep, even if it doesn't materialize, even if I just like draw a bunch of blue and black cards for the rest of the game, thinking about the matchup structurally rather than thinking about your own plan in terms of what does my deck do, agnostic of what my opponent's deck does. And what my opponent's deck does in context is play a bunch of mana dorks and try to win with a creature. And I have successfully slowed them down a lot. Risk the Hunger Tide. I'm going to force pitching one of the Ponders. My next force will pitch the Psychic Frog, unfortunately, but obviously I don't want that to happen. Come on, fetch land. Oy carumba. Not going to fight over Uro. Not on the front. They are a land and a card in the graveyard away from casting that on the back. Land didn't come in, so their hand is 5 spells. Oh my god. Alright. Like I said, 21 lands in this deck, and Lorien Revealed. We've drawn 5 cards, 6 cards. We are now below expectation, even understanding the risk that we took. This is going to be Uro. I'm going to have to fight over this. Force pitching Murktide. Yeah, I think Harbinger is more likely to cheese this game from low resources than Murktide is. Force me back. We're very dead. I could still draw Island this turn and Ponder into Plow and stabilize. Or the Magic Gods could hold up their giant middle finger. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we had this conversation as we slowly died this game. The hand interacted meaningfully with their deck multiple times with what I had. I have 20 lands to draw to, plus a Lorien Revealed in the deck, any one of which would have been great. And 7 cards later, we just have drawn a bunch of uncastables. Like maybe mulligan, maybe don't. Depends on your tolerance for risk, and if you're going to freak out when this happens, then just mulligan that hand. If you're going to understand that you are way below expectation on hits at this point, because it's turn 7. It's literally turn 7. I haven't played a mana source since turn 1, and we were still like live there. It's just, you know, if we hit the Ponder right now, we're still very much playing this game. So attacked the opponent structurally. They continued to develop, and I didn't, and now we're going to lose. But risk reward, GG. On to the next round.
The BoshNRoll channel is proudly partnered with the Resleevables.
Good. All right, here we go, gang.
In this YouTube series, hosts Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan take us on a set-by-set journey through the good, the bad, and the ugly of Magic's history. Each episode is a focused deep dive into the facts about a set's design and release, the Magic lore expressed through the cards in that set, Tournament Edition gameplay videos featuring products and Pro Tour decks of the era, an award show that shouts out the best and weirdest cards of the set, and a final grade for the set's overall success. Whether you want a history lesson or a nostalgia hit, The Resleevables has it at youtube.com/theresleevables.
I'm on the play for round number 4, and I'm going to keep this hand. It has Lorien Revealed, 2 lands, and a bunch of stuff to do. As this league progresses, and I may also just be recency bias of just having color screwed myself out of a game for 7 turns. But Legacy is a cyclical format, and patterns we've seen in the past come back, and when something changes, like a new release that shakes things up or a ban that shakes things up, people kind of forget about other old patterns that for a while, and then they settle back into them. And 3-color decks don't usually get a bunch of basic lands. And if you play a bunch of basic lands, you don't get 4 wastelands. This is basically 7 colorless lands in the deck. 4 actually colorless, and then 3 that have 1 color in a deck that actively seeks sometimes multiple pips of existing colors. And this might just be a structural issue with the deck, trying to do too much with its mana without building responsibly. But I'm just going to play Magic and finish out this league, and we can talk about that at the end. A Bayou. Seen a weird number of Bayous lately. I'm going to remove this Noble Hierarch. Plow the Hierarch. If I draw a black source, I'll just shove Frog. I didn't draw a black source, so what I'm going to do is waste their Bayou, and then Lorien Revealed for Underground Sea and play Psychic Frog after reducing their resources multiple times. Or they're going to wasteland me. Still going to get Underground Sea. Okay, a Bayou Wasteland deck. Cradle Control doesn't usually play Wasteland. Okay, here's a bunch of basic lands. I will keep Polluted Delta in my hand and pass it back to my opponent. Shadowy Backstreet. Okay, so this is Maverick. Straight up Maverick. Okay. Abzan Magic cards with Noble Hierarch in the mix is Maverick. That's interesting. I wonder if I'm supposed to Wasteland here and then just try to get to a spot where Frog is super sticky. But we've also learned that just having Frog in play is better than not having Frog in play. But Swords of Plowshares is what I was worried about. Gaia's Cradle with no creatures, good stuff. I'm going to brainstorm, see if I can come up with a threat. I'm going to put back this basic Plains and Tundra. A Wasteland their Shadowy Backstreet. And I'm deciding if I want to Ponder or not. I think just having lands on top of my deck is fine. I could shove this Murktide and then hold up Swords of Plowshares and hopefully just kill them in 3 hits. They keep coming. Zenith for 0. This will give them 1 mana out of Gaia's Cradle. This is the Tundra that casts this Plow. I'm going to be relentless on mana denial. We're just in on that at this point. Not leaving any spells in my graveyard. It would take a while for Tamiyo to buy one back anyway. Just try to get my opponent dead in 3 hits. Okay, they pass without a play. No land, no nothing. I ponder using the white because I have this Plains. Psychic Frog, Force of Will. I'm going to put Force of Will in my hand and attack for 8. Given that they didn't do anything last turn, it might have been a safe runway to stick the Frog, but why risk it when I could just check the box and have Force of Will ready to go? And now Ignoble Hierarch was their play, clearly their draw for the turn, or else it would have happened earlier. And now they have 1 turn and 3 mana with which to remove my Murktide Regent through Force of Will. They could do something like play out 2 creatures and then Gaia's Cradle taps for more mana, but most creatures I wouldn't care about. Unless they're main decking Pyroblast off of this or go for the Throat. If they come up with white for Swords of Plowshares, which they've already used 2 of, none of that beats Force of Will either. And Grist is something they could do. Zenith for 2. I'm just going to force it. I don't care what this is. Just put it in the graveyard. Okay, cool. Murktide Regent handling a fair green deck, as Garfield intended. Wrath of Sky seems great here. Sheoldred's Edict. I don't think I want a Harbinge of the Seas this deck. Though they do also have like pretty cool land packages, but they also get to play some number of basics and a bunch of dorks. I don't want to daze this deck on the draw. Teferi is just generic permanent removal, and their deck's full of generic permanents. Their deck's also full of triggered and activated abilities. I like Stifle quite a bit. I could go down to 3 Force of Wills, or I could make this matchup all about Frog and be that Frog tempo deck, where this deck that doesn't get a lot of card selection might not be able to dig for a second answer if I can answer the first one. Yeah, I think I talked myself into that. And maybe I go down 1 Stifle, because it's not useful once they just have a big creature in play. Let's do it. I will keep this. It's not beautiful. It's pretty awkward. The basic swamp, not helpful. And this is what I was just talking about at the start of this, where this is functionally 2 colorless lands in my hand right now. I guess the swamp gives us a small bump on Prismatic Ending. It's not fair to call it fully colorless, but it's very close. Opponent mulled to 5. Tough. Basic Forest beats Wasteland, but Dried Arbor doesn't. And I'm in no rush here. You mulled to 5. I'm going to squeeze your resources. Misty Rainforest. Oh, please hold that. Please hold that. Please hold that. Let me get this Delta in. Hell yeah. Okay. Now I have Stifle up for their second land drop after killing a land, and they're on the mulligan. It's good stuff. And to the Shadow Realm you go. I think I have to get Tundra here, even though I understand they're a Wasteland deck. Okay. Windswept Heath. Still have not cracked it, despite them now knowing I'm a Stifle deck. They could Bowmaster. Yeah, I'm just going to play Undercity Sewers and pass here. Underground Sea. I don't hate another land. I'm going to pass. I'm not going to create a situation where they could suddenly get a massive thing going with Bowmaster. End step, fetch Shadowy Backstreet. I am going to Brainstorm now. Frog Tameo, I like it. Put back the 2 endings. I can't cast 2 of those in a turn with my mana anyway. Land number 3. Now they're going. 3 cards left. Knight of the Reliquary. That is a powerful magic card. I think I should kill it. White, blue, black. And then I have another ending on top of my deck. I can end plus Tameo next turn if they keep generating threats. The white mana looks pretty good here. Scrib Ranger, that bricks Psychic Frog and Tameo, and Murktide. Good thing I can answer it. I'm not going to fight over this Hierarch. Okay, Swamp, Prismatic Ending for 2 colors. Psychic Frog, bring it home. They've got 1 card in hand. If it Swords to Plowshares, they'll be Hellbent, and I'll play Murktide plus Tameo next turn. It is Swords to Plowshares. Cool. And Bajuka Bog. Wow, that was a nice little 1-2. Good job, opponent. One of those just came off the top, and they were both relevant. That was sweet. One last little Hail Mary before you're dead. Brainstorm, immediately flip Tameo. Let's get this going. I'm going to put back Ponder and Brainstorm and just hold up Force Blue card plus Swords to Plowshares. Like Tameo plus keeps Noble Hierarch in check, and their deck is just creatures and spells, and I can answer a creature and a spell. Curse the Hunger Tide, that's a spell. That was one of the stickier things they could have drawn. This Ponder will just find Brainstorm, so I'm going to hold it and just be patient. Let Tameo tick up. I could draw half my deck turn after next. Keen-Eyed Curator, sweet. Yeah, I mean, that's potentially a 7/7 that also keeps my graveyard under control. I think I will just simply remove that from play. We'll probably eat 2 things out of my graveyard on the way through, but then it's gone. I can rebuy my Plow with Tameo whenever that becomes necessary. And my job this turn will be protect Tameo 1 more turn. Force of Will does that. Okay. Thoughtseize is a blank, but putting Force of Will in my hand lets me draw half my deck next turn, and the opponent would have to draw an uncounterable spell that also kills Tameo. If they have Abrupt Decay, good job. But the top of my deck is also Tameo, and they're done. Sweet. On to the final round.
We're a few rounds into the video. Thanks for sticking with me. Friendly reminder that if you're still here and having fun, smash that subscribe button. And if you want to play what I'm playing, you can use my affiliate link for TCG Player to support the channel while you shop for cards, and you can try any deck anytime with a cardhoarder.com loan account for Magic Online. All these links are in the video description below. Now back to the league.
I'm on the draw in the final round. Got a 1-drop and some lands and interaction and stuff. Deal. Positive record on the line. 2-2 at the moment. Wooded Foothills. Please pass that into my Stifle. Moment of Truth. Sick. Got him. Alright, I am going to hold up Stifle rather than play out Tameo here. Decks that play Wooded Foothills. This is like, well, with Great Furnace, it's got to be Painter. Okay, I'm going to fetch. They may have Red Blast here, which is something I want to be respectful of, at least aware of, say it out loud. And I think I am going to Force of Will. If I force this, I can waste them and play Tameo next turn, and then they have no permanence versus Tameo. I'm going to force pitching Brazen Borrower. Oh, look at you, you sick maniac. Spirit Guide, another Red Blast. Hell yeah. Okay. We're gaming. Okay. Well, that was a lot of Red Blasts. And Soul Guide Lantern, which will slow down Murktide Regent and Psychic Frog. Okay. Wasteland, take out Great Furnace, and then play Tameo. Obviously, another blue card here. Not ideal. Oh yeah, Painter just showing up into the Psychic Frog format. Triple Red Blast before the end of turn 3. And I did not draw the land, so we are now behind. Ancient Tomb, Jesus. We're going to lose. Goblin Engineer. I have this turn to find a white source, and then I'll feel pretty stable. And if I draw a blue or black source, I can play Frog, which I don't feel great about, because whatever they're about to tutor is probably going to be an engine. But if I can find white and clear the Engineer, especially if it's a Tundra where it locks up Psychic Frog for next turn as well, or Scrubland, Fetchland, any of those are good. Ensnaring Bridge in the bin. Okay, that one, they're playing scared. I like that. Fetchland? Oh, Wasteland. Okay. Well, that's not bad either. But them playing scared with Ensnaring Bridge is good for me, because I have Prismatic Endings and Brazen Borrowers in my deck. Finding that Urza Saga right after I spend a Miracle Wasteland kind of stinks, but you got it. Okay, I'm leading on Frog. I'm just not scared of the Ensnaring Bridge to the point where I'm going to remove an Engineer over getting Frog on board. They could spin this into Great Furnace just to make sure their Saga can work. Yep, that is a much better play than going for Ensnaring Bridge, and they saw it. Saw the line. Ancient Tomb. Okay, now they didn't need to do that. Oh, Jesus. There's so many cards happening. Remember when I thought I was going to have them on 0 permanents at the end of their second turn, and instead the game looks like this on turn 6? This is fun. And Ensnaring Bridge is fully a lock right now, because I don't have the 3rd mana. I plussed Karn, and they're activating... Okay. If I draw a colored source of mana, we're good. If I don't, we're bad. We're bad. Okay. They have 4 mana. If Urza Saga can generate any action here, I can't use the ending. I can plow the Engineer. And I guess I just pass and hope that Karn doesn't kill me outright. They get a 2/2 construct that will be a 3/3 construct. If they have a Mox Opal in their deck, that's a jump on mana that gets the Liquid Metal Coating going. Enlightened Tutor, look at you. This deck is certainly something. Yeah, they grab Painter Servant, which probably means they're getting Grindstone here. Indeed. Yeah, Grindstone's in play. You're a Murktide Regent. That doesn't help. Now I'm actually in a lot of trouble because I guess it's not that bad. All right. I'm just going to pass. I was going to say I have to spend Prismatic Ending on Grindstone, or else I lose to the Ensnaring Bridge, but I could just plow the Painter instead, and that's fine. Karn can wish for a Painter that's been Swords to Plowshare, though. That is of some concern. I am aware of the interaction. Karn's making a wish. I hope it just grabs a mana source and tries to send it on Grindstone. Portable Hole. The Frog's in the hole. Okay. Frog goes in the hole. They only have 1 mana right now, and they're under their own Ensnaring Bridge. That means I can plow Painter. 1/2, 1/2, 3. If I plow Painter and they draw a mana source, they can still win next turn. Not through that Stifle, though. Oh, this is getting complicated. And all because I'm on 2 lands. I'm just going to pass here. Stifle on this Karn seems like potentially good enough. Hexing Bauble, that doesn't affect anything I'm doing. If they minus Karn now to get Painter, they're just plussing, they're taking their time, which is correct. It's just disappointing. I'm not mad, just disappointed. Daze, now a bad card, after the Vexing Bauble is down. I could Prismatic End the Portable Hole. There's one other ending, and I pitched Brazen Borrower. I only play one of those, right? Yes, okay. Really need to end the Ensnaring Bridge to have a chance in this game. The Karn is gonna... Yeah, they just went way over the top. Okay. I'm gonna end the Portable Hole and hope for a sequence. I'm gonna play to win here. I could play to not lose, which is ending the Grindstone. I'm gonna try to play to win, which is let them make a mistake and leverage somehow. Bloodstained Mire, it makes the hand empty. Karn plussed. Just going to stifle a Karn minus whenever it comes up. Okay. Now I have 2 frogs. Stifle's still up. I can also Murktide from this position. They revealed a plateau. There's white in this deck. Oh, we've seen the Enlightened Tutor. We knew about that. less exciting than I had hoped. Okay, they're wishing with Karn. I'm going to fetch and get Underground Sea. And I'm going to stifle this. Because that is the win with Painter in exile. That also means they have the win again next turn. Gotta draw my one outer Prismatic Ending. Hey, Ponder. Find me the goods. Swords to Plowshares is live. The other Prismatic Ending is here. Okay. I am gonna roll the dice like a maniac. I am not gonna shuffle. I'm gonna pass. If they just yeet Karn, get Painter, go off, they win. But if they take a turn off to plus Karn again to try to slow the game down, I can then kill Karn. Yep, there we go. There's the plus. And they have to play a card. Simian Spirit Guide. Dazing that doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. Here we go. I get to kill Karn now. And draw 2 cards. I am activated. Engaged. Blue. Black. White. End this bridge. I'm going to jump both frogs. Leaving spells in my graveyard for Murktide. As much as I can. And Psychic Frog does trigger when it hits a Planeswalker, because it was designed in 2023. I think I can afford to discard Daze at this point. And Karn dies. I draw 2 cards. We knew Tundra was there. Did I know Stifle was there? I must have. But that also takes Grindstone off my back for a turn. Okay, playing to win is starting to cash out. If I had Prismatic Ending this Grindstone 3 turns ago, I think I would be losing now, but instead I like my position. They can crack back because, of course, the bridge is gone. I just hope they don't play 2 bridges. These frogs are made for frogging. And that's just what they'll do. Murktide is lethal next turn, so I don't need to add anything to the frog beats. And if they have a Pyroblast here, that's a blast they don't have from Murktide. Fine, whatever. Okay, I draw a card. It's a basic Plains. Murktide Regent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards out of the graveyard. Large as possible. Pyroblast gone. I think if I tapped better here, I could have played Psychic Frog and still held up Stifle. No, that's not true. Basic Plains just doesn't make that happen. Okay. Stifle's up. Opponent's dead on board. Because they can see that I have 2 cards I can discard. Oh my god, did they draw the 5th Red Blast? Okay. Vexing Bauble, I could stifle this. I'm not going to. If they were empty, I would have stifled that just to take all doubt out, but if that was bait on, like, they're holding Painter and just trying to flush out a stifle, that would have been really embarrassing to lose to. And they're dead! Yeah, okay, that was sick. Bring in Wrath of the Skies. And now the whole matchup flips. This just changes everything. Teferi is another answer to a permanent. Daze versus the Mox Opal Simian Spirit Guide Ancient Tomb deck. No thanks. Stifle's fine. Plow's good. White Removal's good. Do I want Force of Negation having seen Karn? I want Sheoldred's Edict. Generally, you want to take forces out versus Painter-style decks because they have so many red blasts, but this person going over the top with Karn is extra scary. I think my interaction is good enough that I should play without forces and try to beat the board. Consigned to Memory, Wrath of the Skies, Edict, Thoughtseize, all these plows and endings. Okay, I'm going to try it like this. Let's go. Last game of the league, I hope. I don't hate this. I don't love it, but a piece of interaction, a piece of selection, and I am not going to get color screwed unless they Blood Moon me. I also boarded out every card in my deck that cares about Vexing Bauble. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That was a double Spirit Guide Magus of the Moon start. Plains is in my hand, but that is, I don't have a plow right now. I get 10 turns to draw one. They had a follow-up too. Jeez, okay. That was a good hand. Swords of Plowshares, Orcish Bowmaster. I guess I'll put Underground Sea into play and pass. The Swamp gets me Bowmaster or Thoughtseize. A Plow removes Magus. A Prismatic Ending removes Engineer. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't get to 3 colors here to clear the Magus, but I can take this pressure off. This also removes the threat of a looping Phyrexian Dragon Engine. I could have held that for a couple turns and ended up in a spot where drawing Island or Plains clears the moon. Here's Wrath of the Skies, a card that does not work with Magus in play, because I only have 1 Plains. And Phyrexian Dragon Engine's online now. That can knock 2 turns off the clock and refill their hand. Looking for Swords to Plowshares. Prismatic Ending. So close. You were the chosen one. But now I'm looking for Swords to Plowshares or Island or Swamp or Lorien Revealed. They're still holding on to that last card in their hand. I wonder if it's Red Blast or Lightning Bolt. Just trying to think why they haven't dragoned me yet. Sick. Well, now they're never gonna. That card's in play. I believe on Earth, the card leaves the graveyard on resolution, so I don't need to be proactive about this. If I'm wrong about that, they got me, but otherwise, they're going to spend 5 mana and receive nothing. I can't cantrip because I don't have black. They tap mana a bunch of times, untapped in, then just attack me for 2. Good call. Imperial Recruiter, yeah, we're in the old school now. Whatever this is going to make the clock faster. Even if they just get like Spirit Guide and play it, they just cut a lot of turns off this game. And they could probably do better than Spirit Guide. Like Breya's Apprentice here is completely busted. Painter, but didn't play it. Okay. That makes me think they were not sandbagging Red Blast, or they would have played it. Guess what? That's the card I wanted. Plow this Magus. Thoughtseize your Painter Servant. Fetching in response. Are they going to suddenly reveal Veil of Summer? What's going on here? Oh, they're going to Enlighten Tutor? Yeah, fetch again. Yeah, Enlighten Tutor. It's going to find something. Maybe Blood Moon. Yeah, okay. I'm going to take Painter Servant. They've got Blood Moon on top of their deck, but I have now access to basic Island. And I'm going to see if I can find my Swamp before I pass the turn here. Ponder. I cannot Swamp. I can play a large Murktide region. Or I could just shuffle. I think I'm going to shuffle. Shuffle this, yes. It was Murktide region anyway. Shuffle Truthers, rejoice. I can Spellbomb them, draw another card before I'm done with my turn here. I will do that. The Dragon Engine's still in there. There's the basic Swamp. And yeah, I'll just fetch basic Swamp. See if they even want to cast the Blood Moon at this point. Bowmaster's ready to go. Blood Moon resolves. Opponent's Hellbent. I'm at 3. Bowmaster. Now we flip the script on them. They started this game putting me on a 10-turn clock while I couldn't really do anything. Now they're Hellbent and they're on a 10-turn clock. Teferi is a sicko. Blue-white. It doesn't matter. I'll just tap my basics. I'm going to bounce Blood Moon. Play Murktide. I'm at 2 if I want to play Tamiya. I guess... No, I didn't tap more blue than I needed. I just happened to land in a triple blue line here. Okay. Fetch, another blue. Tundra. Tamiyo. I'm just dumping it all out. If they have Lightning Bolt, they got me. Murktide. The game just changed very quickly. Okay. Don't draw Lightning Bolt. Go. There's Blood Moon. You did it. 1 red in the pool. Now more red in the pool. Less red in the pool. They're just moving their lands around like crazy. I hope this is a slow roll. Just bolt me after doing all that. That would be really funny. Pyroblast. Okay, they were just deciding which of my permanents is the worst for them. Which is a good spot for me to be in, having many powerful good permanents. Attack for 2. Make a clue. I'm going to bust my clue now. In case I draw a card I want to cast, like Psychic Frog, for example. I'm not playing Undercity Sewers because it doesn't surveil here. Vexing Bauble. That's just going to cantrip immediately. Off it goes. Getcha. Teferi is also in the plus mode, which means I can Prismatic Ending for 2. They found another Pyroblast. The frog dies. And they're back to Hellbent. But they did just take time off the clock by upping the Bowmaster. Attack for 3. Crack the clue. Ponder. This is going to flip Tamiyo. And I think Stifle is the best thing I can put in my hand here. Plus Tamiyo. I can Prismatic Ending at instant speed and then Stifle something. I will run out this Underground Sea. They played a land. Good news for me. Okay, plus Teferi. Attack with Bowmaster. Do I want to get Ponder back with Tamiyo or just plus Tamiyo? I think I want Ponder back. I don't think that Tamiyo reducing attack power is what this game's going to be about. Swords of Plowshares beats Lightning Bolt because now I can plow my own thing, and they packed it up. Rallied back. A positive record in a hard-fought league. I was going to debrief at the end here and say that I don't like the mana in this deck. I think the basic lands are greedy, or the wastelands are greedy. And if you are not playing Wasteland, then you probably don't play Daze or Stifle either, and then the deck just becomes a very different thing. If we weren't playing basics, we would have lost that last game to the turn 1 Magus of the Moon. But figuring out what is most likely to happen most of the time versus solving for any situation ever is a sign of a strong deck builder. And the person trying to solve for every situation is not the strong deck builder, which is the opposite of how a lot of people build decks. Because if you put this deck on paper and you're like, I'm going to stifle Wasteland, daze the crap out of people while I'm going crazy with Psychic Frog, and then you clear your mind and then say, I'm going to beat Blood Moon and Wasteland with my basics, and you never combine, like, what if I draw Swamp, Plains, Wasteland in a game in my base blue deck, then you're going to have problems like the game. We played a couple games where I just couldn't cast spells in a interesting way or in a useful way. So I would probably play an island or maybe a plains in the sideboard or something here, but really lean on non-basics, fetch duels if you want to actually play a 3-color deck here with Daze and Wasteland. Another thing that I noticed very clearly when we were up against the blue-black version with Necrogoyf, if my opponent holds removal for Psychic Frog, I get to draw some cards slowly with Tamiyo. If this was Necrogoyf and my opponent's holding removal for Psychic Frog, they take 5 every turn, and you can't do that for very long. And I mentioned this at the beginning too. I like Tamiyo in decks where the opponent's going to hold removal because they're scared of Psychic Frog. And that's still true. And that blue-black deck we played against also had Tamiyo, but then they also had Necrogoyf. Nethergoyf? Nethergoyf. Yeah, Necrogoyf sucks. Nethergoyf's good. Nethergoyf. And then I was also scared of Frog and Bowmaster out of them. So the idea of holding against a Dimir deck that has Goyf and Tamiyo, you hold removal because you don't want to take big chunks of damage while your opponent draws cards from Psychic Frog. If they create Psychic Frog in the aggregate with Tamiyo and Nethergoyf, they're taking big chunks of damage while you draw cards. And you get to build 2 halves of Psychic Frog out of 2 individual creatures. And if the opponent doesn't recognize that's happening, they're just going to get frogged in the aggregate a bunch of times while they're scared of getting frogged. And I think that just the relentlessness of a deck like that is probably better, though, that said, we also had Swords of Plowshares come up huge, Prismatic Ending come up huge in those last couple matches versus Nadu, Maverick, and Painter. The white was really important. Important to note, though, the white was not very important in the mirror match. My opponent had better removal than me at all points because their deck was more focused, even though my removal is, air quotes, better on paper. I would rather cast Swords of Plowshares than Dismember, but that only matters if I could cast it, and it only matters if I'm applying pressure. So a lot to think about from this league, and a lot to explore in this new format. Obviously, Psychic Frog is what the format's going to hinge around for a very long time, as long as it's legal. I'm not going to be stomping my feet and calling for bans and saying they blew it on the first day after the ban update. Like, I am going to give it some time, but I do think that Grief should have been banned 3 months ago, so we would have known Psychic Frog is busted by now, and then Psychic Frog is banned now, because the next ban announcement comes after Eternal Weekend. So if you are prepping for that event, make sure you know how to play with and against Psychic Frog. I think we can make this deck better by either giving up the basic lands, giving up the tempo aspect, and just playing Esper midrange, Esper control, or just adding more cheap threats. That's where I'm going to leave this. This was fun. This was a really good educational experience right in this new format. Jam1 Garner, thanks for sharing this with us. Everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, check out the Patreon, and I'll see you next time.